Tell everybody if you are on locals to go to either Rumble or YouTube. Looks like they screwed up again. All right, hang tight. I just don't want to lose anybody in the shuffle. Getter's good. Rumble's good. See there, I just played it back for myself. Locals glitched. Something glitched. Glitched. Let me just tell them to, once again in the chat, go to Rumble, go to Rumble, go to Rumble. Go to a Rumble. This is getting annoying now. All right. Let's do it. One message, one message is enough. Two messages is excessive. Let's get this party started, shall we? Right. Let's do it. All right, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Tell locals to go to Rumble until I figure out what on earth is going on. We got a lot of new polls that have come out, some interesting polls. We have one that's going to come out ourselves, the national poll, also for the Public Polling Project. And we did a poll with Barnes, which is really cool, with his legal center. And that's going to be a special show, I believe. All right, so it's done. It's collected. We'll process it today for public consumption and put it out there. A lot of really cool stuff about what people think about medical and health freedom in general. And then, of course, we had to ask a bunch of stuff about the presidential election. We also started our populism index, which I think I'm going to... Listen, I just wanted to get out there whether or not, like a simple yes or no, do you consider yourself to be a populist? And then how much of that comes from the right? How much of that comes from the left? It used to mostly all come from the left, right? Used to for a brief period of time when Republicans were dominated by Bushism, the Bush wing, the dull wing, right? After Reagan, before Trump. And before that, the Republican Party was a very populist party. And then it became really, it's like, this Democrats are for the little people thing. It is not the case anymore. I mean, period, full stop. If you believe it is, then I'm sorry for you. So we have all of that coming up, and it's pretty exciting. Today is Wednesday. It's going to come to a head by the end of the week. I don't know that I can share a whole lot with you, so we'll go over some of the other stuff and then take a look at the Electoral College again briefly if we can. But also, I just want to weigh into this debate real quick and get it out of the way so we can get into the polls. Yesterday, Julie Kelly, who is a social media kind of like, she's not a lawyer. I think a lot of people thought she was, but really nice woman. I know Julie has done a lot of work with J6 stuff. I mean, she's been a shoulder to lean on for these family members who have been charged. Too many have literally killed themselves over the persecutions over J6. Nonviolent offenses, just charged crazy. But in any event, fun fact, there are more people who are political prisoners in the United States under Joe Biden than there is under Vladimir Putin. It's just a fact. Anyway, if you consider them political prisoners. Anyway, she comes out with this, she gets her hand on this, these documents, and in one of the search warrant documents is the authorization for the use of deadly force in the raid on Mar-a-Lago. All right. And with that came outrage. Sean and I talked about it. Both Sean and I served in the military. We something as former military people jumped out at us, right? The amount of people, and because there were people who were attacking Julie and others who were outraged over it, saying that this is standard operating procedure. Obviously, William Shipley's one of them. He's a lawyer. He represents a lot of the J6 people. And I like Will too, by the way. I like William Shipley. We get along just fine. He started calling it standard operating procedure. Him and Dan Bongino got into a back and forth about it. All right. Listen, I don't think anyone's questioning whether or not the way the raid itself was conducted, with SOP. The point is, if you have ever served in the military or the government and you use standard operating procedures for things, the operable word there is standard. All right. This is the raid on Mar-a-Lago was not standard. And I think that that's what's being overlooked here. Trump was in negotiations. Trump and his team were in negotiations. All right. So before we move on to polls, I just want to iron this out here. There's a bit of a fact pattern we got to go through to explain what I'm talking about. So I got to get this share screen ready because I didn't know if we would go to this first. And I just want to get out of the way so we can talk about polls. But herein lies the problem. One, we know for a fact, we know it, that the senior FBI officials in charge of this case didn't think this was standard at all. So if you're calling it SOP, you have something that's really difficult to explain. They did not think this was standard. In fact, the word they used was excessive. All right, when they leaked to the Washington Post because they thought this was crazy. So here is the article from the Washington Post. Okay. And then we have some videos because we got to take a trip down memory lane. Context is always important, folks. You can't just try to describe this away as standard operating procedure because, again, the operative word there is standard. And if Sean was on right now, which, by the way, I'll be on Battleground Live tonight at 5, a little after 5, but it starts at 5, so be there. And Sean and I will no doubt weigh into this. If you ever dealt with this kind of thing, and if you were in the military, let's say there was a certain procedure for dealing with certain HVTs, high value targets. Okay. In the event there was somebody, and say there was an op on an HVT that's like an exceptional HVT, SOP is always revisited. So, for instance, there is a standard operating procedure for getting Osama bin Laden's people, okay? But there is a revisit to the SOP when you're dealing with Osama bin Laden himself and you find out he's in Islamabad and the Pakistanis are holding him in an intel place. All right. Anyway, so this happens all just practically. What people are trying to say is not how it works when you're dealing with exceptional situations. Showdown before the FBI raid. FBI agents and prosecutors argued over Trump. Let me summarize this before we go through it. Number one, it's very simple. The FBI, the career FBI people, and I don't let them off the hook at all because you still work there, don't you? I mean, listen, it's just the same as if when you were a kid, maybe you were with a bunch of friends and they shoplifted and then they get caught and you're with them. And you're like, oh, but it wasn't me. It was just my friends. Okay. Well, that's bullshit. You were with them and the company you keep defines who you are. Okay. I mean, really. I threw me and my friends got caught throwing rocks through a window in a grocery store. I don't know. I'm making some stuff up. It wasn't me. I'm not the one who threw the rock and I objected to it. Well, are you really still any better since you sat there and watched them throw the rocks? In my own life, I've had to ask that question of myself before, and there are things I wish I would have done more to stop. And I didn't. Does that make me any better? I don't hold myself to that such standard. If you watch an injustice, if you watch something that's wrong and you do nothing about it, then you are just as wrong. I'm sorry. And I hold myself to that. So I beat myself up over that. And we don't have to revisit it, go down memory lane here. You guys know what I'm talking about. I beat myself up over it every day. I should have done more. So you're a rank and file and you're just sitting around and what? You gave your strong objections. You're still a part of what is now an irreparably broken and corrupt bureau that has no control over what Maine justice does anyway, even if you wanted it to be. But this is not just Trump. I mean, folks, there's been a problem for a very long time. In order to get the okay from Janet Reno to launch the raid on Waco, they lied to Janet Reno. They said David Koresh was abusing those children right then and there, and that he would likely probably kill them if we didn't move in now. All bunch of fairy tales they told Janet Reno. They've been doing this for a long time. So I don't let these people off the hook at all. I don't. Showdown before the raid, they fought. An exclusive look at the behind-the-scenes deliberations as both sides wrestled with a national security case that has potentially far-reaching political consequences. Months of dispute between the Justice Department prosecutors and FBI agents over how best to try to recover the classified documents from Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago club and residents led to a tense showdown near the end of July last year, according to 4 people familiar with the discussions. I'm not gonna read this whole thing. I just want to read this part to you. You ready? The next 2 paragraphs. Prosecutors argued that new evidence. Who are the prosecutors, by the way? This is Joe Biden's Justice Department. This is Joe Biden's Justice Department. This is his White House. The pressure he is bringing to bear on the White House. By the way, in the New York Times, we don't have to speculate. In the New York Times, Biden White House has repeatedly gone to Merrick Garland and objected to how slow they were moving in arresting Donald Trump. How slow Jack Smith was moving in his case against Donald Trump. This is all directed from the White House. This is not speculation. In the case of the documents case, we now know because of John Solomon, who got the documents in black and white, Biden's White House pushed this. So don't give me standard operating procedure. The operative word there is standard. There is nothing standard about a current president who is currently losing to the former president who he supposedly defeated last time, using out of control special prosecutors who craft novel legal theories and then launch raids against former presidents. And by the way, most likely the future one, again, the 45th and likely 47th president, and authorizing the use of deadly force. That's a common criminal raid type thing. But this president, this person, is protected by the Secret Service. It's not the People's Pundit saying it. It's not Dan Bongino saying it. The Secret Service people, the FBI agents, this was totally unnecessary. They did this for political shock factor. They could have caused blue on blue violence so Joe Biden could have a political benefit. And FBI agents knew this. The prosecutors argued that new evidence suggested Trump was knowingly concealing secret documents at his Palm Beach, Florida home and urged the FBI to conduct a surprise raid at the property. But 2 senior FBI officials who would be in charge of leading the search resisted the plan as too combative and proposed instead to seek Trump's permission to search his property, according to the 4 people who spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe a sensitive investigation. Folks, this is a fucking records case. There's nothing standard about this. This is a presidential records case. These issues are dealt with negotiations back and forth between the archives and the president, the office of the president. This is not a matter for the Justice Department or the FBI. And the FBI is like, why don't you just get presidential records to deal with this? Why don't we call them and say, listen, we're involved in this now. So it's not just them breathing down your neck. We want to know what you got to. Do you mind if we take a look? Prosecutors ultimately prevailed in that dispute, of course, because the president's order is the president's order. One of several previously unreported clashes in a tug of war between 2 arms of the Justice Department over how aggressively to pursue a criminal investigation of a former president. The FBI conducted an unprecedented, again, how many times are we going to hear this word? Raid on August 8th, recovering more than 100 classified items, among them a document describing a foreign government's military defenses, including its nuclear capabilities. Which, by the way, all of that is now in that part of that is kind of like disputed as opposed to how serious that was. All right. How do you know this wasn't standard and this was creepy? Because nobody wants to take credit for it. At first, when he was trying to give Biden cover, Merrick Garland took the heat. He issued a statement. I'm coming out. I'm going to talk in a little bit. And I have a couple of things to say about this. Okay? This is what he said when he did that.
There are, however, certain points I want you to know. First, I personally approved the decision to seek a search warrant in this matter. Second, the department does not take such a decision lightly.
Okay. Then he goes before Josh Hawley, who questions him, and he says, well, it wasn't my decision. I approved it. Scummy politician, squirming, slime bag, Washington, D.C. stuff. So Josh Hawley says, okay, so this was your idea, not Joe Biden's idea. And he said, well, no, it's the prosecutors. Who? What prosecutors? You just said you approved it. Well, I approved it. I wasn't the one who made the decision. What the hell are you talking about? You are the head of the Justice Department. You are the Attorney General. If you approve that decision, then it was your doing. Just like, even though the FBI lied to Janet Reno, it ultimately fell on Janet Reno because she made the decision. And all of those people, including women and children, were burned alive, bodies hugging each other. Knowing, by the way, the FBI concealing how many incidents prior of the use of CS gas ended up going in flames. Sure. They blamed the Branch Davidians, got some schmuck to say he saw it, or he heard that they said they would do this in the event the FBI came in, blah, 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 blah. I don't believe them for shit, neither should you, because they're liars. That's what they do. And he's lying to Josh Hawley, who gets him boxed in a corner, and that's it. And you know what? Somebody else was there and remembered that incident, and here he is.
This week, we got the shocking news that the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, had personally approved the use of deadly force when agents were sent to raid Mar-a-Lago. That is truly astonishing. We break all that down in today's podcast. We examine the argument that is being used. This is standard procedure, nothing to look at here. Well, we break that down and point out how ridiculous that is when you're going and searching the home of the former president of the United States, who was actively guarded by Secret Service agents at the time.
Right.
We explain it all. We also get into Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State, testified before the Senate yesterday. And I questioned him vigorously on the Biden administration's backwards foreign policy, a foreign policy of undermining and attacking and weakening Israel, and at the same time...
I don't care. Listen, that's not that I don't care about it. It's not the point. It's getting off topic. Again, standard operating procedure is very different when you have Secret Service guarding your target, especially when senior FBI officials in charge of the investigation were saying that this is not a good idea. This is excessive, combative. This was done not because it was standard operating procedure. It was done for the same reason that they called CNN at 4:00 in the morning and said, we're going to go hit Roger Stone. It was done for a political objective. Standard operating procedure, my ass. So that's... Oh, and by the way, just let's take a trip down memory lane. And I know this is a couple of minutes, and I know we're coming up on the break, and I promise when we're done, we'll get to the polling. Let's take a trip down memory lane. I already just brought up Waco. But there was a case, actually, and many of you probably don't know this. There was a case where Merrick Garland was directly involved. The gentleman I'm about to play, and by the way, he had a very, very different opinion on SOB and what is and what isn't excessive. And the case is unbelievable. You're going to be shocked when you hear how very different of a view Merrick Garland had back then with this target. The gentleman I'm about to play an interview with is on every documentary you will ever see about this target. He's on a Netflix documentary right now. He's on a Vice documentary about this target right now. It's unbelievable when you see this. Are you ready?
Worked for the FBI that existed as recently as 20 years ago has been itself transformed. It is no longer independent at all, and it no longer has agents who will speak up, even if they're talking to the FBI director and say, look, that may not be a good path or a good decision. Perhaps we should consider something different. The FBI I was in was highly agitated when decisions like this came along, and everybody had a voice. And fortunately, we worked.
Now they're just reduced to leaking it to the Washington Post. They're just reduced to, I guess I better just leak it to the Washington Post as a shot across the bow, but I don't really have any say or opinion.
At a time when people listen to each other. That's not happening now. And I've never said this publicly, but I'll just tell you right now because it just sickens me to watch and listen to Merrick Garland. Because Merrick Garland was in charge of the prosecution at DOJ of the Unabomber.
What?
And I have to tell you something.
Yeah.
He would not recommend to the AG that our search warrant to get into Theodore Kaczynski's cabin be approved. He and his group of attorneys had us working till 2 or 3 in the morning of April 3rd. And finally, the AG, Janet Reno, along with Louis Freeh, they stepped in. They approved the search warrant anyway. Now, that was a case where we had bombs on airplanes. We had threats to blow up airplanes in midair. We had people killed with bombs for 18 years. He wouldn't do anything. He would not recommend to the AG that we get into that cabin on April 3rd.
Timeout. So Merrick Garland was perfectly fine with authorizing a standard operating procedure search warrant, which obviously does call for the use of deadly force if it's needed, the authorization for it. He wouldn't do that for Ted effing Kaczynski, the Unabomber, who terrified and terrorized the nation for a long period of time, literally ended up. He was a terrorist, a real one, not a fake domestic terrorist that incited a fake erection. I don't know. He wouldn't do that for the Unabomber, but he was all right to do it in the Mar-a-Lago case, not only against a former president, not only just that, how different this was, but a man who is guarded by Secret Service, who themselves are armed and tasked with protecting that target. This is inexplicable. This is not defendable whatsoever.
He didn't see the urgency then, and he didn't seem to care about agents being up all night trying to get ready for that. But on this is how he handles this. We have what was the last count? 75, perhaps. I'm sure that's real lowball of potential people who are terrorists. They were on the terror watch list. They're in America today somewhere. The FBI has no idea where they are. Christopher Wray could not tell us last week where the Hunter Biden laptop is or if the FBI still has it. But we might have, and I say this very passionately because I also worked counterintelligence for years in the FBI. We may very well have our own highest level of government penetrated by Chinese agents. And the evidence is certainly on the surface, and the patterns are there. I've worked this stuff. I know what it looks like, and many agents feel this way.
All right, so we don't need to get into all of that, but I just thought that it was important for us to take a little bit of a trip down memory lane because context always matters. Context always matters. And by the way, again, everyone I know is in the military, people, FBI agents that we do obviously have quite a few of them. and again, it gives me no pleasure to say the things about them that I do. They don't seem to see it this way. And I just want to point out CIA agent online. You guys probably know who he is. Brian Dean Wright. He took to, because it was a back and forth between Dan and Bill yesterday, and he took to Twitter last night, or kind of later in the evening last night, and he obviously went and spoke to some friends as well. And it's like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Let me just make sure that there's no personal communications or anything. There is not. And Brian tweeted this, okay, which I think is important. These people are in it. They know it. Spoke to friends still at the Bureau. Not one thought it was wise or prudent to have authorization of deadly force during the Mar-a-Lago raid. Said one, we kill someone over documents at a U.S. president's house? Stupid, unnecessary, not normal. Dan's right here. I got to tell you, the people who spoke to the Washington Post, the person I spoke with early this morning, the person Brian spoke with last night, all seem to be saying the same thing. This was totally unnecessary. It's not standard. You're missing the point. It's like you're just missing the point. If you're focusing on, well, the warrant itself called for standard use of deadly, it's standard. They call for the use of the authorization of deadly force. It's like you're totally talk about losing the plot. That's not really the point. It is not the point. The point is you could have done this differently because you already chose not to go the standard route with a case like this. You already chose to take the novel path. You know this target is protected by Secret Service. You know the compound is protected by Secret Service. Folks, if you have ever been to Mar-a-Lago, they will give you detailed instructions. An invitation to Mar-a-Lago will come with a page and a half of detailed instructions after you have been vetted, by the way. After you have been vetted by Secret Service. Trust me, I know. They're in my email. You go here or else you could be shot. You go this way when you come in. There is no Lyft, no Uber, no nothing on here. No vehicles are allowed on this side. No vehicles allowed on this driveway. No vehicles allowed over here. No person walks over here. This is the way you come. That's a dangerous situation. Dangerous situation. And they chose to do it like that for political shock value. So if you're already going to take that novel route, why wouldn't you do it a different way, a novel way? Don't give me standard operating procedures. Not a common criminal. Authorization for the use of deadly force. Give me a break. You're already taking a novel approach. You could just take a step. It's very simple. This is a very different situation. This is a not at all standard situation. It calls for a little bit more tact. It calls for a little bit more, like he said, a little less combative tactics. Like the agent in charge said. I don't know why on earth anyone would miss the plot and care about whether or not the search warrant was written and it was standard up in a way that, it complies with SOP. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's crazy. I'm sorry. It's crazy. All right. Mr. I won't raid the Unabomber Shaq personally approved it. Okay? There's something wrong there. Something very wrong there. All right, it's 12:31. When we come back, we'll get into the polls. All right, I just had to bring that up. Again, I think I would sum it up by saying missing the plot. Totally missing the plot. I want to put a map on the screen real quick before we go to a break, though. However, and there were some key elections last night. One of them was in Georgia. And what I find interesting is if we go to that map at the moment, you had Andrew Pinson against John Barrow. John Barrow for the U.S. For the state Supreme Court. This is obviously Pinson's seat in the state of Georgia. I think a lot of people are shocked to know and learn that there are a lot of crazy left wingers who do get elected to Supreme Court, state Supreme Court seats. And people all the time tell me, like, Rich, how the hell is that possible? There are no Republicans elected in blue states. Well, of course, they don't always quite act that way, do they? But the fact is that this happens. It does. And North Carolina was one that where it happened not that long ago. They can sometimes, even though it is okay, well, I'll leave that to the other segment, but there's something interesting about this map, and I'm just going to preview what I'm about to say. It looks, when you look at the polling between Biden and Trump, the map by region looks pretty damn close. So when we see these polls in Georgia where Trump is up anywhere between 4 and 10 points, is it that far off? I don't know. We'll see. But we'll look at where Pinson got votes. We'll look at where Barrow got votes, and then we'll take to the polls in the Battleground states, which just came out not long ago. But before we do, let's take a real quick short break and pay the bills. If you're struggling with tax debt and the IRS is breathing down your neck, if you owe taxes and you don't know where to turn, I've got the answer for you. It is Tax Relief Helpers. Tax Relief Helpers is a team of experienced tax attorneys, enrolled agents, accountants. They've been resolving these issues for over 20 years. Folks, they've seen it all. You need a team like this on your side to stop the nasty letters, potentially wage garnishments, even audits. Here's how it'll work. You'll start with a private consultation. It comes at no cost to you. They'll do a thorough tax debt report to see exactly what the IRS sees. They even have a special insider phone line to the IRS that will help speed things up and get your case resolved. Tax Relief Helpers will build the case, save you time, endless paperwork. They're tough negotiators. They're so tough, even their competitors hire them. The best part, they will get results. Remember, tax problems don't solve themselves. Call Tax Relief Helpers today and start your journey toward tax resolution. The number's on the screen. It's 888-508-5797. That's 888-508-5797. Or you could go to taxreliefhelpers.com, taxreliefhelpers.com. Don't forget to tell them the People's Pundit sent you. And don't wait. Call them today. Call them now after the show. Get your life on track and leave the tax troubles behind you. All right. We'll take another break in a bit here, but I want to go back to this. This is an incredible, an absolutely incredible map. Okay. Why? There has been polling to suggest that Donald Trump is doing better in the Atlanta metro area, in the suburbs of Atlanta, as you will, than Republicans have been doing in the past, not just Donald Trump. We have told you in the past that the Atlanta metro area, the shift to Democrats among and in around the Atlanta metro area and what is the Atlanta Regional Commission, has been going on for a long time. It comes to a head in the Trump era, but it's been going on for a long time. It is not a phenomena of Donald Trump. It's right here. This is the New York Times, by the way. Their little, as you can see, their little graphic. So this is not me putting together what I want to put together. Counties like Cobb, counties like Douglas, counties like Clayton, counties like Fayette, counties like Henry, counties like Gwinnett, weren't always like this. Forsyth, by the way. Cherokee. There's many more. Even Carroll, by the way, off to the west. And then you have some of the losses finally getting like real bad for Republicans when you get as far south as Clayton is in this day and age anyway. Clayton is pretty much it. But there you have it. There's the trend. Yet last night, Pinson got, this is just unbelievable. Barrow got demolished in all but the interior of the Atlanta Regional Commission. He obviously won DeKalb. He won at 62-38. And Barrow won Fulton County, 54 to 46. I mean, that's it. Really, 54.5 to 45.6. If we were to, rounding doesn't reach 100 due to rounding. Okay. This is an incredible, whooping. At the same time, obviously, Fani Willis wins her competition. Yeah, by the way, I'm telling you guys, if anybody's still watching on locals, go to Rumble, go to Rumble, go to Rumble. Let me put it in the message again. Rumble, YouTube, whatever you want to do. Yep. Just go over. I don't know. I checked the key, double checked it. It's right. So I don't know what's going on. This is like, by the way, the second time this has happened. I don't know if it's some kind of development thing. Sometimes because they're constantly updating stuff over at locals, it's getting cooler and cooler. But once in a while, we can expect some of this stuff to happen. So yeah, I mean, when you look at the polling from Georgia, by the way, we would see in the Atlanta metro area, Donald Trump doing considerably better than he did in 2020. And yet here we have a state Supreme Court vote. A lot of times, well, let me put it this way. These should be local elections, like gubernatorial elections or local elections. Yet, in some cases, let's take Brian Hagedorn's loss in Wisconsin. You could overlap his map with Mitt Romney to the T. You could overlap Hagedorn's loss to a nut, a real lefty, with Mitt Romney's loss to Barack Obama in 2012. It's almost identical. Margins change here and there, but it's almost identical. Am I suggesting Donald Trump's going to take back a bunch of these counties in the Atlanta Regional Commission? No, but I'm suggesting he's probably going to take back one or two. Maybe one. I'm willing to say one. But, the polling that is out there right now, which Decision Desk, by the way, just tweeted about not long ago, is significant. He can't do that by just running it up because Trump does incredibly well in central, right around here, central Georgia, central southern Georgia, which used to be ancestral Democratic. Really, you're talking about, Savannah and then Liberty's outside of it. There are, of course, other Democratic pockets, but you would see him box Joe Biden into these areas. But man, the map would have to look pretty dang similar, folks. It would. It would have to look pretty dang similar. If you're talking about Fayette, right? Because if we go back, Clayton is another one. Because if we go back to that other map, you'll see that some of them aren't really super, super, super Democratic. So, for instance, Cobb, it's been close not that long ago. Look at 2016. Hillary barely carried Cobb County. Gwinnett County also was not the way it's these blowouts we see now. It wasn't that Democratic that long ago. And then to the southeast there, you see Henry County and the surrounding area. It does look like when you, at first glance, for instance, take a look at Fayette, it does look like, Fayette's getting ready to go in the next presidential election to the Democrat. That would absolutely not happen if Donald Trump does as well, if he performs as well as the polls that in Georgia right now suggest he will. Now, there have been some, races that are a little bit closer, or polls, that show a little bit closer of a race. But for the most part, the aggregate right now at this point in the state of Georgia with just a head-to-head is Trump +4, with the New York Times having Trump up by 9. I think that's a little bit bullish. When you have Kennedy, West, and Stein in the equation, Trump is up by 6. New York Times, Siena has him up by 8. Fox News up by 7. And actually, I'll tell you what, believe me, I actually think the New York Times Siena poll, as far as the dynamic between the head-to-head and the crowded race, I actually tend to think that they're right. It's just what we're repeatedly seeing in our data. All right. So there you have it. We should just probably look at all those polls. All right. Get into it. Man, for some reason, I'll tell you what. The sample we just collected for the national poll, the raw sample, is too much African American, to just a hair, not much. About right, looks at Hispanics, but also more non-white than recent presidential elections. Let me put it that way. And you would think, you would think that with that being the case, Donald Trump would not be performing that well in this poll. That is not the case. Yeah, that is just simply not the case. And here's the thing, the New York Times Siena poll, one of the things that people looked at and picked right out of it and said, oh, this can't be right. It can't be right. One of those things is that the Arab population in some of these states, and especially if they're like, of course, Arab non-white, and they said they're voting for Trump. He's leading Biden in the New York Times Siena poll. And people are like, this is crazy. However, as even Frank Luntz pointed out in response to that question, hiccups. If you ask those people who they voted for in 2020, you will see that they voted for Joe Biden at roughly the margin that they in fact voted for Joe Biden at. So you can't just outwardly dismiss this. You can't, because these are people who are telling us, and I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking at it again right now. Who are you going to vote for? And Trump's his strength is a little ridiculous. And then you look back at the 2020 vote, and maybe it's a little bit more, for Trump, because you have some people there who aren't willing to admit they voted for Biden. They want to lie. But for the most part, folks, a 30-point margin is like a 28-point margin, 27. So you have some people who are like, I didn't vote for Biden. Nope, wasn't me. Even though that's BS, they did. The point being is that you're still talking to people who said they voted for Joe Biden in 2020 who are now voting for Donald Trump. And they're not particularly white. It's just a fact. This is insane that we're still debating this. And the New York Times would be attacked over something like that when everybody sees it. Everybody sees it. I talked to a friend the other day, me and my Democratic buddy. For those who've been following me a while, you know which one I'm talking about. My Dem operative buddy. Doing some focus groups and Battleground states. And he told me, and this is not to offend anyone, I'm merely repeating verbatim what he said. And by the way, we have people who have mental handicaps in our not immediate, in our family. We know people who have children, so I'm not saying this to offend anyone. I'm saying what he said verbatim. All right. He said the theme is, you want me to vote for a retard? This guy is senile. I can't vote for this guy. He's an idiot. You told us he would be better than Trump. He's not better than Trump. And he can't even speak. He can't even walk. Do I have to play the clip? Maybe I will get that clip in a minute. Do I have to play the clip from yesterday? Did you guys see yesterday? I signed the bill. It's not. Today I signed the pact. Today I signed the pact. And they're telling these focus groups that Democrats are running, how could you expect me to vote for this? I cannot vote for this. And I'll try to get it. I'll try to find it. But that's what they're hearing in the focus groups. And oh my goodness, I got it. Oh my goodness. And of course, Trump's campaign manager just has to jump on it immediately. All right, let me get it. Let me play it, because this is what they're not showing them, things like this. They're not saying, hey, take a look at this video and then tell me who you're going to vote for. Do you think Biden's mental fitness is an issue? They're not doing that. They're doing a focus group as legit as they could do it. They're paying good money to learn the truth. They don't want to sugarcoat anything. They don't want anything sugarcoated to them. It's like some of these polls are for the public consumption. That's for you. And I'm sorry to say that happens in my industry, but it does. That's for you. That's for the fundraisers, and it's BS. And then you have the very serious research that they spend a fortune on to learn as much as they can about what they're facing in the upcoming election. And constantly, no matter where they go, no matter what state they're in, they get from people who voted for Biden. You told us this guy was on his game. You told us this guy would, quote, return us to normal. He would shut down the virus. You gave us a mentally handicapped idiot. That's what I mean. So this is what they're dealing with right now. All right. It's a very real thing. And they don't have a way to answer. That's the kicker. Because not that I would ever give him advice, but he doesn't have a way to answer it. The only thing that they're thinking is to try to make Donald Trump to make Donald Trump also look like he's suffering from his age. That's what they plan to do. They've been doing it now, actually, for a while, but that is going to be the official plan because they have nothing else. That and felon. New York Times or Siena poll just out in New York. It is very close. Biden is leading barely by 9 points. He's totally collapsed from his 2020 numbers, and Trump is only marginally higher than what he got in 2020. But it's important to note that the Siena College poll grossly understated Trump's support in the state of New York in 2020. That had him at like 30%. He would go on, of course, to win upwards of high 30s. So a lot of it is a Biden collapse. But even with them, most people think that Donald Trump's going to be found guilty in that court. Regardless, not that it's legitimate. The guilty verdict is baked in the cake. And the focus group people know this too. They know that at least some aspect, some element of that is already baked into the cake, but they're encouraged by those polls that you keep seeing. Okay, who are you going to vote for? But what if Trump is a felon? What if he's convicted? He's a felon. They're hopeful because of some of the results they've seen there, and they will use it. But Joe Biden's mental incompetency, they know, is, if not one, it's one of, but if not the biggest liability for Joe Biden right now. All right. What am I talking about? He's mentally fit. Oh my God. Just look at him before I even play this. Poor bastard. Again, I would just say this. Laura would never do this to me. Laura would never use me like this. She wouldn't. She wouldn't allow it. Now, I know you got kids who are legally exposed. If Donald Trump is elected president, Hunter Biden's going to jail. I really think that's going to happen. I mean, prison, folks. They have corrupt business dealings with the Romanians, with the Chinese. You just heard the FBI agent say it before. The FBI agent said, he listen, if he's good enough for National Geographic, if he's good enough for left-wing Vice News, if he's good enough for Netflix, left-wing as well, if he's good enough for all these people to call when they're doing a special on Theodore Kaczynski, the Unabomber, then he's not good enough to take his word on that? Anyway, just listen to this.
Let me close with this. After I signed the PACT Act into law, let me close with this.
Try one more time.
After I signed the PACT Act into law.
The Cadillac Act? The Cadillac Pact? The Cadillac Shellacked? I don't know what he's trying to say. I haven't a clue. I wish I did, but I don't. And neither does anybody else. And that is a major problem for Joe Biden as it stands today. All right. Let's get back to these polls. Let's take a look at some of them. I'm not going to go to the website. We're going to go to RCP. All right. And then we'll probably go to Decision Desk to take a look at their map so I can show you their map. All right. So let's make it big and beautiful. They got a new round of Battleground State poll that follows the Battleground State polls, first from Emerson and then from the New York Times. Both of them showing that Trump is ahead either in every single state or all but one, maybe. Here in the new round of Bloomberg Morning Consult polls, Morning Consult, I believe, is the poll that was in question on Friday during the Q&A. How could you be polling the same race for 6 months and constantly get the same result, or not very, very much at all? And I thought long and hard about that, because it is almost an outlier in the sense, because YouGov's kind of doing it too, but it's almost an outlier in the sense that it's been like Trump +1 for 6 months. Then it will go to maybe, I think Trump's got a high of a 3-point lead. Biden had a high of a 2-point lead. And it goes back and forth. It's clearly a poll that's more favorable to Joe Biden than others being Fox News, CNN, the New York Times, us, many, many others. I mean, we can go back. We can look Harvard-Harris, which we went over on Monday. Clearly, it's one of Biden's more favorable polls. And they swing here and there. Nevada goes from, like, this month it's a tie. Last month it was 4 points, something like that. The New York Times has Trump up in Nevada by 13. It goes back and forth, but generally speaking, the trend remains. It's very, very bad news for Joe Biden. You're the incumbent president, and there are 2 blue dots on the board. It's the state of Michigan. They're both within the margin of error. Several of these battleground states are what appear to be outside the margin of error, Sun Belt states as well. So the Nevada tie, you can kind of call an outlier, considering the other Sun Belt states. Arizona, Trump +5. North Carolina, Trump +7. Georgia, Trump +3. Unless it's the other ballot, then it's Trump +5. So you have the state of Nevada, which has moved more to the right, actually. Even though Democrats have been able to hold it, it has moved more to the right against the national mood than any other state. North Carolina has moved just about with it. What does that mean? Let's say it was Biden, a little over Biden +4 in 2020. Let's say it goes to Trump +1. You should expect North Carolina to move about 5 points. So therefore, Trump would win the state of North Carolina by about 7 points. Their poll is Trump +7 in North Carolina. The data, listen, Data for Progress is not a great poll. I don't dismiss any poll outright. I see the Trump +3 in North Carolina that was released today. I think it's absurd. Okay. North Carolina was another red wave in 2022. It's just the one that we never talk about because Florida got all the news. It's not happening. North Carolina is not going to Joe Biden. It's not. There's no Nova. There's the Research Triangle. There's Mecklenburg, right? You have areas in and around, of course, Charlotte, but Wade County, right? But there is no big Nova vote like there is in the state of Virginia. If Virginia is 1 point for Biden right now, which a very good, credible pollster just recently found, then believe me when I tell you North Carolina ain't 3 points. North Carolina was 4 points when Hillary Clinton still won Virginia by almost 5, roughly 5. And the demographics have been shifting remarkably in Republicans' favor, as the registration trends in the state of North Carolina. It's like the Research Triangle can only do so much. By the way, Governor Cooper knows that. Very smart. That's why he wants to move Apple to Wade County. Because Democrats understand what I say is true. The economy is politics. Not because of the unemployment rate stupid Republicans focus on, not because of this or that or the other thing. The type of industry and jobs you bring to your state will define the political nature of your state. If you are Atlanta and you open it up to a mini Tinseltown because you're a Republican who wants the jobless number down lower, you're an idiot, and you will help to change your state blue. Ditto to governors like Ducey in Arizona and others even before him. If all you care about is the unemployment rate in your state, so you let Nike come into Maricopa County into downtown Phoenix, you're an idiot. Along with that will come liberals. All right. So here we have a little bit better of a situation. In the state of Michigan, Biden leads Trump by 1. The New York Times Siena poll also found that, but not among registered voters, among likely voters. Among registered voters, Trump was ahead in Michigan by 7 in the New York Times poll, 49 to 42. I said it at the time, if you recall. I think that's a little bit crazy for a likely voter model to shift the electorate 8 points on net. That's a lot for a likely voter model in a presidential election. That's a lot. Anyway, the rest of the polling universe doesn't really see it that way. And as you can see, Trump still has a small edge, but nevertheless has the edge in Michigan and has for a while. I mean, I'm willing to bet you if a recent CNN poll came out in the state of Michigan, because one just came out last month, it was Trump plus 8. Public opinion doesn't really move like that. Those are artifacts of the polls themselves. Can it move? Of course it does. Not by that. What I would say to you is this. If Trump is winning all of these states the way he is, they even have him up in Wisconsin, by the way, which gives him a tiny, tiny lead in the Real Clear Politics average. By the way, it's only a tiny lead because Quinnipiac is an outlier and a left-wing or leftist. And I will just call Malloy what he is. He is a leftist now. I remember, though, back in 2014, when Republicans used to give them, what's the correct word I'm looking for here? When Republicans gave them attention and Democrats did not, why does that matter to places like Quinnipiac? Well, how are you going to get your funding? Who's going to fund those grants? All of a sudden, those polls were wildly skewed Republican. Joni Ernst plus 8 in Iowa, when everybody else had Brady still relatively close. Now, he was going to lose. He was always going to lose. But you know what I'm saying. Generic ballot, ridiculously Republican. Funny. Then the era of Trump comes along. They don't give them any credit. Hillary Clinton gives them tons of exposure. And all of a sudden, they're super, super favorable to Hillary Clinton. I don't know, folks. A little coincidental to me. One poll, fine. A season of polls? No. Quinnipiac did better in 22. They did. They did do better in 22, but we cannot overlook the fact that they've had decent midterm performances in the past. 18 was a bomb for them. They did some okay, but for the most part, they bombed 18. We can't overlook the fact that they seem to be badly, badly struggling with presidential elections, which are a different animal. They are, in my opinion, in my experience, and the theory backs me up. It's easier to poll typical presidential elections than midterms. Why? You're talking about a smaller population in midterm elections, which obviously means potentially higher sampling errors. Talking about larger populations, as long as you have large enough samples for presidential elections, theoretically, it should be a more stable results. And I remember in 16, before the election, people like me saying, look, I think you guys are just wrong. Chris Steyerwalt and others saying, it's the daggone election. It's the guy daggone presidency. That guy ain't right. Never heard a fake Southern accent so bad in my life. The daggone presidency. Polls don't get him wrong. Okay. Anyway, this is Wisconsin. If it wasn't for the Quinnipiac poll, then you would see Trump with about a 1.1 lead, something in that ballpark. Joe Biden was polling better in the state of Wisconsin in several of these polls until recently. And by the way, Marquette was an outlier when they came out with the Biden plus 9. By the way, do you see any outlying Trump plus 8s or 10s in Wisconsin? Do you see any of that? Why am I bringing that up? If you're going to have ridiculous outliers showing a candidate with ridiculous strength in one area, then you absolutely should have it in both directions. And when you don't, there's a problem. So it's actually, arguably, you could say this is evidence that the polls are getting ready to understate Trump's support again. Because that's what's happened every time we've had cycles where that was the case. That being no dual direction, huge outliers. Outliers always seem to be in one direction. Or it's possible all these other, pollsters are doing good jobs. And we're really talking about Trump plus 1, Trump plus 2. And when we look at, God, it's 102 already. Damn. All right, we'll look at some of the other ones and then we'll go over the map All right, when we come back, I was trying to get to the map as quick as possible. I'm going through the aggregate so we can get to the map and you can understand why I'm saying what I'm saying when we get to that map. But for now, let's take another real quick break and we will be back after a word from our sponsors. All right, look, folks, between everything that's happening in the world today, economic, political, all the instability, it's no surprise that people are looking for safer places to invest their money. Stocks can be unpredictable, and let's face it, inflation has a huge impact on the value of currencies. And that's why I want to talk to you about Freedom Gold USA. If you've ever thought about investing in gold and or silver, or you're just interested in diversifying your investment portfolio, Freedom Gold USA is definitely a company that you should check out. What I like about them is that they're all about helping you make smart investment choices, not the pushy tactics. They want you to learn about precious metals. They believe that the more you know, the better. So they can offer free investment guides and consultations and give you the information that you need to make confident decisions. No pressure, no hard sell. That's one among many things that makes Freedom Gold USA different. Also, they guarantee competitive pricing on some of the best quality and purity gold and silver that you'll find. You know you're getting a solid deal. You don't have to worry about extra fees. They offer free shipping and insurance on all orders. That's nuts. Plus, you may even get some free silver on qualifying purchases. They give you a $500 credit toward opening a gold or silver IRA. Folks, that's a nice bonus. And here's the best part. Dealing with Freedom Gold USA is simple and it is hassle-free. You won't get any pushy sales tactics. They're all about just helping you reach your financial goals in a way that works for you. So, if you want to learn more, I'd recommend that you give Freedom Gold USA a call at the numbers on the screen. 888-278-3592. That's 888-278-3592. Tell them the People's Pundit sent you, or you could just go to, again, on the screen, website they got just for yours truly, freedomgoldusa.com/rich. That is freedomgoldusa.com/rich. All right. And let's just do one more here and we'll get back to the map, okay? I'm not going to get into all the reports. You've all heard them. I've read them to you before. You guys hear about this avian flu, right? The WHO's global pandemic treaty. It's been the topic of conversation for many months, right? So, look, is H5N1, which is disease X, is it hard to know for sure what's going on with it? They talk about a fatality rate of up to 25%, which means that people will fear the disease, which means that people will be more susceptible to government control. It is hard to know for sure what the truth is about it, but the media push behind this disease at this time shouldn't be ignored. Gain of function, big pharma's interest, ready-made vaccines mean that if cases start to cluster and outbreaks occur, bird flu may be the 2024 pandemic crisis that they need. I won't ever be the one to tell you to panic, but it's no reason not to be prepared. It is no time to be complacent. It is time to be prepared. And that's why I'm grateful to show you the Wellness Company's Contagion Emergency Kit, of which Laura and I have two, the only of its kind. This prescription kit provides you with a carefully selected assortment of effective medications for bird flu, COVID-19, other respiratory illnesses. We're talking ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, Z-Pak, Tamiflu, budesonide. I always screw that one up, along with the new one, which is a nebulizer. So you can rest easy knowing that you have the meds on hand if you need them. Avoid the wait times and the price of a hospital visit, by the way, and have exactly what you need for as low as the cost of a single doctor visit. This kit is built to save lives through early treatment, and every American should have at least one. At least one. Again, Laura and I have two. Go to twc.health/TPP. You're going to see that website right there. twc.health/TPP. And let the Wellness Company's Contagion Emergency Kit be your lifeline. One more time. twc.health/TPP. That code will get you 10% off and free shipping at checkout. All right. And by the way, when we come back to the next thing, I've got this great testimonial. Telling you, know a lot of people who had this issue, but we'll get there when we get there. All right, let's go back to RCP. Boom. Oh, wait. Yeah, I'm supposed to take my 30. Give me my 30 and we will be back right after. this 30-second countdown where I'm supposed to drink water and shut up to give my voice a rest. Ha! You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. We'll be back in 30 seconds. All right, we're back to a whole lot of red on Real Clear Politics. All right, folks, you are watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to follow us all over social media. Like the video. If you like it, smash that like button. All right, and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, mosey on over to Rumble. If you're on Rumble, mosey on over to YouTube. And with the exception of today, the best place to follow us is always on Locals. peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. And when you get there, you will see this nice little graphic. Hey, waving to you. Support our polls. Support our polls. That's the public polling project. The link is also in the description to this video. Go there, check it out, contribute what you can. We know times are tough, but do what you can. And always share it far and wide because, of course, the bigger the base for any crowdfunding project, the better. The bigger the base for any crowdfunding project, the better. We have to re-up on our agreement with the public polling project soon. So I'm hoping to make sure that we get a decent turnout here in our own right. We'll have the Trump versus Biden head-to-head for you. We'll have new Biden approval numbers. We'll also have a bunch of different presidential scenarios with a project we did with Barnes and a whole bunch of really cool results that, honestly, I haven't really taken that much time to look at. I've just looked at the presidential head-to-head, Biden's approval, things I normally look at when I glance at polling. And I'm going to crunch that today, and Barnes and I will have a special on that poll. You won't want to miss it, all right? All right, let's get back to the numbers, however. All right, because look, fact of the matter is, Donald Trump cannot win the popular vote like these polls are suggesting he is currently doing without winning these battleground states. And it is perfectly normal to see some of these states closer with certain polls than other polls. Maybe Biden leads by 1 in one, Trump leads by 3 in the other. For instance, you're looking at Michigan right now, and we just went to it. If you were to go to the state of Michigan aggregate polling on Real Clear Politics, you would see that Trump is ahead, and most polls have him ahead in the average. But it's perfectly normal to see one poll with a Biden +1, a Biden +2 that is well within the margin. What I'm telling you right now is, if Trump is ahead in Wisconsin and Trump is ahead in Pennsylvania, especially by these numbers, he's going to win likely all 3. He will sweep it. All right. Now, it is, of course, possible that the polls are understating Biden. Here's the problem with that argument. Biden's approval rating sucks. His approval rating is really, really bad. And Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen's Reports was on Bannon earlier today to discuss his recent polling and other things. And of course, he was being told, hey, Rasmussen's the outlier because they had Trump up by 9 or something like that. No sooner did they release that poll, a couple of days later, CNN put out a very similar poll. Now, do I think that's too bullish on Trump? I do. The Harvard poll has Trump up by 5 or 6, respectively, depending on what scenario you have. I still think that's probably too much of a bullish scenario. But my point being is, it doesn't really matter. If Trump is up in the popular vote, he's going to sweep the Electoral College. Okay? End of story. Biden needs, or very likely to be the end of the story, because what happened in 22 was a midterm electorate. It's not a general election electorate. There will be more low prop voters in the electorate. There will be more Trump or bust voters in the electorate. We see it all the time. We're going to start to show you a little bit more about who these people are. That you have Republicans up on the generic ballot from Rasmussen by 5. But in many of these polls, it's either very tight, maybe Republicans have a small lead, or Democrats have a lead and Trump is leading Joe Biden. So that is also evidence that that's not going to happen. What a situation like we saw in 22. And then also the other problem with that argument is all these other polls, including our own, that showed tight races in certain states in 22, Nevada, Georgia, Pennsylvania, were not particularly tight when we asked about the presidential election among those very same voters, which were midterm voters. So my point is, Trump would have done much better than Republicans did in the Electoral College, speaking in those battleground states. He would have done much better than the state level candidates did. We know this. Adam Laxalt has a 2-point lead, 1.8, whatever it is. Donald Trump had a 9-point lead, right? Walker edges him out in our last poll by 1. He lost by 1, but still a very good poll. Donald Trump was up by 9. Even when Oz was down 4 in our second to last poll in Pennsylvania, Trump was up by 7 or 6 or something. So that is all taken together. Very strong evidence that that's not going to happen. And what's more likely to happen is what typically happens in a presidential cycle. Everything moves in the winner's direction. They typically do not split the baby. This is not a Solomon situation. Can it be very, very close? Sure. When Trump beat Hillary, he beat her, by the way, by bigger margins than Biden beat him in the States. But when Trump beat Hillary, it still was, not close in the Electoral College. But, I mean, friggin' Michigan was 10,000 votes. When Joe Biden beat Trump in a state like, Wisconsin, it was 0.2 of a percentage point. But yet they all did move in the same direction. Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania have not voted differently from each other since 1988. And by the way, before Wisconsin bucked the trend and went with the caucus, they had been voting together largely. Exception Minnesota's out of that. They haven't voted for a Republican since Richard Milhouse Nixon. Came very close in 16, but that's where it's at. It is highly unlikely that Trump is doing so much better in the Mid-Atlantic. Trump is doing so much better in the Sun Belt that something weird's going to happen, like he's going to romp in Arizona but somehow lose Nevada. It's not going to happen. When he lost Nevada by 2 points, he only won Arizona by a little over 3. So, if he's up by 5, he's likely got Nevada. And in this poll here, that's exactly what he's up by. And here's the kicker. Arizona's been moving to the left. Nevada's been moving to the right. 2 totally different situations, which, by the way, is discussed in the most recent video done by the Decision Desk, which you should absolutely check out. You should definitely check it out. All right. Breaking news. Donald Trump will be going to the Bronx. I kid you not. Laura! Trump is going to the Bronx, baby. Trump is going to the Bronx. He's going to your hometown. He's going to the South Bronx. There it is, right there. May 23rd, 2024, 6 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, and they will be at the Petona Park in the South Bronx. This is good. Absolutely, they're going to. They better go to other urban areas in more competitive states. There is absolutely no reason you should not be in. I'm trying to think because the first couple ones that I just thought up really aren't competitive. There is no reason why you should not be rallying in Detroit. There's no reason why you shouldn't be in the heart of Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Milwaukee. Do it. I'd throw the biggest rally in Vegas, boy. I'd have Floyd Mayweather come out there. I would have Vegas Titans come to the stage with me. I would. This is a no-brainer. No-brainer. And for those who say, well, he's not going to win in New York, well, it's close. You get Democrats to spend money where they otherwise should never have to spend money. That's the name of this game, folks. That is the name of this game. Help out the House candidates down ballot. Good. That's what you needed to. That's what you would need to do. If Biden was popular and he was leading, he would be doing the same thing. Democrats are never afraid to go into the suburbs and rural America, even though that, obviously it's Trump country in rural America. They don't need to win it. They just need to pull some votes away. Republicans get 70% of the vote in places like that. Trump gets 76, 75, 78. They can get Trump to do like regular Republicans. It's damage. Damage. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. So there you have it. People ask me, one of the number one questions I seem to always get is, will Trump listen to your argument about the urban-rural coalition? Will he listen to it and will he do it? Well, there you have it. And I am certainly not alone. All right. Some bright young Republicans in the 5 boroughs. They're smart people. And they have a lot of energy. They're trying to remake their party. And this is the way to do it. This most definitely is the way to do it. All right. So let's look at the map here. Actually, we already looked at Real Clear Politics and their average. Let's look at the Decision Desk, which does things a little bit different. We'll be in that soon. Oh, by the way, we are going to poll Michigan real soon. Forgot to tell you that. I mean, I told you that before, but all right. So, for instance, let's take a look at Nevada on the Decision Desks. Here we go. And we'll do the 3-way as well. There you have Trump not only leading by almost 7 points in the state of Nevada, but you have Trump at or above 50%. Bad news for Joe Biden. Very, very, very bad news. Donald Trump has never polled at these levels. I would remind everybody that is not in our history books. Let's take a look at the 3-way. There have been several states, and we can look at them, where RFK has claimed ballot access. That is not the same thing as having ballot access. I would really, really, really caution all of you to remember that. In Michigan, he will be on the ballot, period. So there is almost no reason why we should poll Michigan without him on the ballot. He will be the natural law candidate. Now, with him on the ballot, I would not be surprised. Nevada is a state where I would expect a third-party candidate to get, like RFK particularly, to get more votes than he would in several of these other states. But here you still have Trump leading by an overwhelming margin at this point. It's 9 points almost. It's 8.6. 42.5 to 33.9. Ouch. So the New York Times, everyone was calling an outlier. Biden's only at 27%. I'm seeing it myself. When you do the expanded ballot, Biden is down in the dookie. He's down there, folks. He is down there. And it's a real problem. All right. By the way, I just want to peek. I can't help. I want to just peek at something. Okay. Because I don't expect the idea of people saying they're populist. I don't expect it to be really any more than like, I don't know, 10% maybe? Something like that. Bottom line. What in the hell? Oh, I'm looking at, oh my God, that was crazy to me. I'm looking at the decideds and I'm thinking to myself, what the hell is going on? I'm looking at the leaners question and I'm thinking, oh my God, we got some crazy stuff in some of these questions, but that is not what we got. What we have is simple, very simple. We have, well, I can't say it. I want to say it. I can't say it. I really can't, guys. All right. I want to really, really, really badly, but I just can't. All right. This is going to be a very, very interesting poll. Very interesting poll. All right, let's get back to the averages. Sorry, I got distracted for a hot second, and I know it's frustrating because you can't see it, but sorry about that. All right, also, let's look at Arizona. What was the other one that was close? Wisconsin, right. In the RCP average, I believe, is more Trumpy than the decision desk average. Let's see. Nope. Actually, it's a little bit more, right? What was Trump on RCP in Wisconsin? 0.8? 0.1. Sorry. 0.1. On decision desk, he's up by 0.8. All right. And that is, again, with the outlier in there. He will be pulled down when the Bloomberg Morning Consult polls are added to it. But, or no, he's up in that, isn't he? He's up by 1. Never mind. All right. So we go to RFK. With RFK in the bag, it drops it a little bit. All right. So there you have, but he still is nevertheless ahead. All right. So which brings us to the Electoral College. I want to get to this before the break, because there is something else, if we have time. Where did it go that I wanted to go over? Something I read on RCP that I thought you guys should read along with me. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Yeah, there it is. Yeah, there it is. And it is written by someone on the right, of course. Boy, Robert Rice, just unbelievable tone deafness these people put out there. I'm not going to get into too much of the Veep stakes, guys. I'm just warning you right now. I'm not doing that. I think that it's unnecessary. I think that and trying to predict anything that Donald Trump does is tough, and you could look like a fool. So I'm not doing it. All right. So here we have, again, the map. Let me zoom out a little bit. Let me get rid of this. Let me zoom out a little bit so everybody can see a little bit better. Okay. All right. Here we have the map as it stands right now on decision desk. Some things I tend to disagree with. Okay. In this electoral environment, I understand that theirs is a 7 to 12. What's the word I'm looking for? A 7 to 12. Whoops. They have 7 to 12 margin is likely, or lean, excuse me. I believe it is. What is it? No, it's 5 to 12, something like that. However, these 3 states are likely. I'm sorry. In reality. Okay. That's just a reality. As far as the likelihood, now, will he carry North Carolina by as much as he's going to carry Iowa or Ohio? No, but the likelihood that Joe Biden is going to be able, with this national movement, to carry that state is nuts. It's nuts. It's been very clear. Its PVI, partisan voting index, is very pronounced. And I just don't see any way that happens unless the national polls are very, very wrong. More wrong. They'd have to be as wrong, if not more, I think, than 2016 in the Democrat direction, which doesn't happen. I mean, not even in 22. It wasn't by that much. Then again, some polls were. Some polls had a real bad cycle. I'm not going to name any names. We know who they are. All right. In this example, though, however, Trump is still leading and maintains in Nevada, leading and maintains in Arizona, leading and maintain Georgia. Actually, is now, it's like 8 points, right? What would you say? Like 6 to 8 points on that. That's a significant lead. In Pennsylvania, it's also it's taking its spot as the state that polls one of the more Trumpy states. Okay. Now, it doesn't vote as Trumpy as Wisconsin does. Wisconsin tends to poll better for Democrats against Trump, but perform much worse against their polling average. That has been the case in other races as well. It's just that it's not as bad as when Donald Trump is on the ballot, And we have now an example of when a Republican underperformed his polls. Now he won, he still won, but Ron Johnson barely eked out re-election, 1.1 point. That's it. So will that rule hold? I think it's a fair question to ask. I don't have all the answers sometimes. I can just tell you what the trends have been and tell you what I think, but it is possible that Wisconsin breaks. It's done it before. Like I brought up in 88, Michael Dukakis. It said, sorry, guys, I'm going with Dukakis. It's possible. It almost voted for George Bush before he became a nutcase and presided over the collapse of the U.S. economy. Almost, George, almost. But now we have Pennsylvania polling a little bit better for Trump in the last few rounds of Battleground state polls. Not only the Morning Consult poll, but that includes the New York Times poll as well. Very, 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 very close races in those states, but advantage Trump in the aggregate still. Okay, so that's where we're at. So hold on one second. Give me 1 second here, folks. So with that being said, it may not vote like that, but that is the situation right now. So we will leave it there until I have any kind of indication that something's different. And then Michigan remains with a hair in Trump's category. So again, we come to this number, which is 312. Let's pretend the Bloomberg Morning Consult poll is right. Where was it? Michigan went to Biden. Okay. Trump is still going to win with 297 Electoral College votes. Now, let's say Nevada upsets because, hey, they had it tied. Trump still wins with 291 Electoral College votes. But I want to point out again that doesn't usually happen. Okay? In fact, if somebody's making that case, what you should ask them is for an example in modern history of when American voters on the presidential level split the baby like Solomon said. When was the last time that happened? They will look at you dumbfounded because they will not be able to point that example out. It does not exist. Especially not if you even Pennsylvania, Michigan. Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. They were close. George Bush almost won them, but he didn't. They stayed with Al Gore. They stayed with John Kerry. Bush made a huge push in 2004 for those three states. Huge. Said my approval rating was at one point 90%. I can carry Michigan. I can carry Wisconsin. He almost had it the first time. Pennsylvania was very close too. Hell, I can go after New Jersey. He did. One of the very first questions I saw on Locals was from somebody, or was it Locals or YouTube? Was from somebody who's never comments, longtime listener from New Hampshire, and brought up, Rich, I've seen two polls lately. Both of them seem to be close. What do you think about New Hampshire? New Hampshire, its demographics, certainly the change in demographics certainly have favored Democrats. I think you would wind up seeing something like a nail biter. Is it technically possible? Sure, anything's technically possible. I just think that as I've made the argument that, for instance, North Carolina has moved strongly in the direction of the national mood, and then its PVI is very clear. The same is true on the flip side of New Hampshire, because those shifts have also been, they've been in the reverse. They've been in the Democrats' favor. So I would leave it there for now, buddy. All right? I really would. And for those who don't know, there was a recent poll that did have it tied, and then even what is really considered a Democratic-friendly poll, they have it closing now. And when I say closing, I believe it was 6 points, but their prior poll was Biden plus like 11 or something. So it is a tightening of the race. It's just that's a fact. All right. So this is what we would see. That's where we're at. And why? Why is that? If you go to Real Clear Politics right now, what I love about RCP is that they really still do. They are the only place where you can still go to see both sides truly make their arguments. I mean, a true representation of what the right and the left are saying. And it's sad that you can see it in the media, but it's there. And it's there clear as day. Whether that comes in the form of opposition writing, op-eds, or what is supposed to be hard news, because that unfortunately is happening a lot. Never used to be. You could go to Real Clear Politics, what now? God, 15 years ago, it was certainly not that bad. But now you can see it with what are supposed to be mainstream reporters, mainstream news outlets, and you can very see one of them is giving the left's slanted, they're reporting from a left narrative, and then the same is true of other websites that emerged because of that. This is what the left doesn't seem to understand, and they need to really just get it through their thick heads. These sites, these alternative media sites that you're so scared of and you call all sorts of names, they only emerged because of you, because of what you did. It is the same thing when it comes to rhinos who don't like Donald Trump. He's only around and successful because you are a failure and because you are a letdown. The media, you shouldn't have reported the way you reported. Been a little bit more fair. There would never have been a need for these alternative sites. And that's the take, man. That's the hot take. Okay? That is the hot take. All right. I don't want to hear this woman. I don't at all. I want you to see the headline, and I want you to see where we're going to go with this. When we get back, we're going to talk about some economic data that is certainly one of the reasons why we're seeing the poll numbers we're seeing. You have Robert Reich right now with an op-ed on the front of the Real Clear Politics saying the economy's good. People are just too stupid to know. So, because that's the case, because you're too dumb to realize the economy's good, folks, and you keep stubbornly suggesting the economy sucks, it does. Then we're going to have to focus on Trump's character. Forget about all of that. Forget about it all. Americans are too stupid to hear it. Scare the shit out of them. And that'll be, whether or not, because they are going to take that approach. I just explained that to you. And whether or not that holds true, whether or not Americans really do allow that to be the case, that's gonna decide the election. That is going to decide the election. All right, let's take that break, though. And let me just say this before we go here. I love it when I hear from people who, in fact, took advantage of advertiser products and have good feedback to give. Any feedback is welcome, as always. But I'm telling you, just got one for Spike support yesterday, which was made my day. Said my wife is taking it. She really couldn't stand the fact that she got the shot and now didn't know what to do and would take it even if she didn't get it because of how much she feels the benefit from it. And that, of course, I am talking about is Spike support by the Wellness Company. You guys have heard me talk about their contagion kits before, like I just did in the segment prior. All right. Now I want to talk to you about this contagion kit because there's so many people out there. Look, AstraZeneca, Daily Mail just reported, quote, AstraZeneca acknowledged in a legal document submitted to the High Court in February that its vaccine, quote, can, in very rare cases, cause TTS. TTS is short for thrombosis with thrombocytopenia. I kid you not. And it is where a person suffers from blood clots along with lower platelet count. The admission by AstraZeneca is the first of its kind, but you guys know it surely will not be the last after the damage we've seen with these vaccines cause. Wait till you see our poll, by the way. The question now is, if you got the vaccine, what can you do about it? Fortunately, Dr. Peter McCullough and his team at the Wellness Company have been leading experts in treating these issues and vaccine injury since early on, and their research has shown that the stuff that's in their formula, which I will not try to pronounce, actually, you ready? Nattokinase has great potential in treating some of the most serious side effects of the Fauci jab. This groundbreaking discovery led to the formulation of the wellness company's spike support formula, which contains nattokinesia. To date, tens of thousands of people have tried spike support, and the results have been nothing short of miraculous. Testimonies on the website speak for themselves, so don't take my word for it, although he's probably listening right now and he knows exactly who he is. Purchasing each element of spike support formula would cost over $100, which means the wellness company's formulation saves you about 35%. Spike support formula is now the gold standard for combating the spike protein. It's a daily supplement to help get you back to feeling your best. Reclaim your health by going to twc.health/TPP and use the code TPP. Like I said, at checkout, that will save you 10% and get you free shipping. That is twc.health/TPP. All right. All righty. Righty. I'm dying to show you this. Let's get to it. Rid of Spike. And thank you, of course, to all the sponsors and all of you who support them. All right. Poor young Americans. As we brought up the last time we went over the CPI, the heating back up of the CPI before the summer driving season is even in full swing. The heating up of the CPI was driven a lot by shelter. And we've all seen the stories. Looking at the youth vote, wow, Biden won that vote, 65-35. Couldn't possibly be like that now. I don't know. We'll see. This is from USA Today. And they're going to try to spin it the best they could possibly spin it, as you know. But it is what it is here, folks. Exclusive. Largest rent increases are in swing states. Will it spell trouble for Biden? And it's almost like, what the hell do you think? You just think that he would get away with that and like it's not going to hurt him at all? As if for instance, what's a good example? The extremely high insured unemployment rates in several states, battleground states. Michigan is a great example. Gretchen Whitmer did it on purpose. She kept the state closed down long enough to drive the insured unemployment rate to the moon. She wanted to hurt Donald Trump's economic record. She didn't care she was hurting people in her own damn state. She wanted to hurt his record, okay? So she did that. I mean, it would have been crazy to expect that it wouldn't have impacted Donald Trump's vote share in those states. Would have been nuts. All right, let's scroll down, take another look. You guys can see this, right? Yeah. All right. Sounds like me, Laura. Anyone who's ever been poor will be able to relate to this guy right now. Because once upon a time, I wasn't where I am now. I work my what off. I break my butt, make sure my family's all right. But anyone who's ever, been poor or hell, struggled hard. I mean, real struggle. This guy obviously has had some real bad experiences. You're living on the street, you're living in your car, and then you work and pull yourself up by the bootstraps. I've told you guys this before. That's some of the most Trumpy people you could possibly imagine are people who have come from nothing, even potentially. I do have a college education, but even people who don't have a college education, yet they become successful. Those are some of the most Trumpy voters in this country. We call them the pull yourself up by the bootstrap voter. John Pike's biggest fear is ending up on the street. For years, the retired 79-year-old Madison, Wisconsin resident has barely made ends meet with no discretionary income to speak of. Most of his Social Security check of $1,578 goes to rent. At $1,220, that's more than 77% of his monthly income. Between the rising cost of food prices since the pandemic, they're so full of shit. Since the pandemic, everything was fine when Trump handed him the keys to the White House. It's all right there. St. Louis Fed. Google it. They track everything. V-shaped recovery, including of the CPI and its sub-indexes. Joe Biden's administration did this. Sorry. Between the rising cost of food prices and his prescription medication, there's hardly anything left. Let me just tell John, if he's listening, that Donald Trump wanted, in fact, to do something about that prescription drug medication issue you have. But Democrats killed it because Nancy Pelosi did not want him working with Elijah Cummings to give him a bipartisan win on an issue that she said is a Democratic issue. And a Democrat would solve it. But Nancy, there are people hurting in my district in Baltimore. Elijah, shut up. And John, too, you shut up. Stop bitching about the cost of your drugs. We'll do it when we're good, God, you know what, and ready. When his lease expires in September, the rent on his apartment, where he lived for the past 24 years, will go up to $1,600. That's an amount he cannot afford. Quote, my big worry is that I may be homeless again. Again, said Pike, who has held a series of jobs, including as a translator and a programmer. His fear is well-founded. Pike experienced homelessness in the 1980s after losing his job. Like more than 50% of Americans, he is a paycheck away from a disaster. The U.S. experienced a 12% increase in homelessness from 22 to 23 as rents soared and the pandemic resources evaporated, according to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Well, guess what? You never should have engineered a virus that appeared to have been designed to kill Trump voters. And John, whether he's a liberal or not, sadly fell into that category. So I bet you when the pandemic came out, he was all for doing what many of us argued is ludicrous, novel. Talk about novel. It's a novel coronavirus. It's a novel legal theory. So John, like 50% plus more of all Americans, is one disaster away from homelessness, but he really can't. There's nothing he can do about his situation right now. And how long ago? When his lease expires in September? 2 months, less. A month and some weeks before the presidential election. I have been very anxiety-ridden. I will be honest and tell you, I think I have developed PTSD, Pike said. Pike, a registered independent, said he's generally voted for Democratic candidates, but this November, he's unsure he'll vote at all, given his experience dealing with skyrocketing rents and economic hardship. I don't think the federal government as a whole has done enough for people in my circumstance. It prioritizes weapons of war and defense spending and does not prioritize the health and welfare of all its citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, is that guy still a Democrat? He says he's an independent, but he votes Democrat. It's Wisconsin anyway. There's no party registration, so you can claim you're an independent. The fact of the matter is you vote Democrat. You are a Democrat. But is he really anymore? How long will the memory of the working class Democratic Party, white working class in the Rust Belt and in the Midwest, the Mid-Atlantic, how long will that memory remain? Inflation in the economy let me just say this before I keep reading, because it's objectively true that his situation improved under Donald Trump. It did. It's objectively true that Donald Trump is the one who does not want to prioritize weapons of war. He does not want to prioritize, government spending in general over the health and welfare of his citizens, fellow citizens, not his citizens, the country's citizens. Inflation and the economy have long worried American voters, polling shows. Duh. But as housing costs continue to be the biggest driver of core inflation, Renters are feeling increasingly disillusioned with politicians. And I got to say this, don't be so quick to blame the landlord. If you're a homeowner, you know what I mean. All right, don't be so quick to blame the landlord. He may have no choice. He or she may really seriously have no choice. In some swing states, which are critical to President Joe Biden's reelection bid, rental costs have more than doubled under his presidency. More than doubled. In fact, 6 out of 10 top markets and 34 of the top 100 markets with the largest increases are in swing states, according to a USA Today analysis of data exclusively obtained from rent.com. The states considered for the analysis are as follows: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. That is a huge deal. Huge deal. The states, somebody just called, and I got a warplane overhead. When rent is too high, underpaying rent means losing your home. Not paying attention to renters' concerns, especially as rent skyrockets in swing states crucial to Biden's reelection bid, could be costly in November election. Could be costly for his November election. They said it like it's theirs, didn't they? That's Freudian slip right there. It's what we call a Freudian slip. They wrote it in their own person, basically. It could be costly in the November election. You mean costly for you? No. Should have said, well, I guess you could argue they would have been redundant. I guess. For example, 2 metro areas in Wisconsin, where Pikes lives, ranks second and third with higher than 100% rent increases from 2020 to 2024. The top 100 metro areas with the largest increases are Hickory, Lenoir, Morganton, North Carolina, Oshkosh, Neenah, Wisconsin, 106. Holy, 111 in Morganton, Laura. Hickory, Lenoir, Morganton, 111% increase over there. Oshkosh and Neenah, Wisconsin, 106. Racine, this is also Wisconsin, 100%. Waco, Texas, 94. Port St. Lucie, Florida, 75. Fayetteville, North Carolina, Vietnam. That's what we call it. If you ever been to Fort Bragg, you call it Vietnam. All right. That is 75%. Daphne, Fairhope, Foley, Alabama, 67%. Burlington, North Carolina, 64%. Syracuse, New York, 64%. We didn't get a chance to go over those crosstabs, damn it. And we're probably not going to have a chance. And Sierra Vista, Douglas, in Arizona, 63%. David Riviera Core, a 26-year-old graduate student at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, says the housing crisis is one of the issues that dissuades him from voting for either major political party. Again, they're picking liberals and trying to make it out like everyone's just sick of everybody. You're not going to find a liberal graduate student at the University of Milwaukee who's likely to say they're going to vote for Donald Trump. But you step outside of the bubble that they immediately went to, because there are working class suburbs in that county, and go talk to a Biden voter from 2020 there. That's what I care about. You go there. That's the number that Joe Biden has a major problem with. Quote, rent is the aspect of inflation that concerns me the most, said Rivera Core, one of Pike's neighbors. People can sometimes find ways to cut back on expenses like gas and groceries, but this is just not an option for rent. Underpaying rent means losing your home. So big, so huge. That was incredible. That's incredibly profound. He's totally right. You can cut back. Hey, listen, I ain't going to buy that at the grocery store this month. I'm not going to get this. I'm going to drive less. I'm not going to go all over the place. I need to save on gas. Car is going to be parked for a day or two more this week. But you don't pay your rent, you're done. It's not a choice. It's not an option. Here's the top 100 regions by highest rent increases. You can clearly see this. A lot of it also is, of course, in California. With Florida, by the way, after, but the reason they did that is because of battleground states. Georgia, which they conveniently skipped. Not Gainesville, Florida, Gainesville, Georgia. Look at that. This is huge. In Savannah, huge. They got it, though. It's the truth. Want the truth? Some ritzy areas over there, they got it. But there are some that don't. Flint, Michigan. Ann Arbor, which got a little bit more Biden. Battle Creek. Saginaw. Flint. Grand Rapids. Home to old traditional kind of Dutch population. Republican, but traditional, not MAGA. However, an area where we have been seeing pretty significant swings back. Housing costs continue to be the single largest driver of core inflation, a measure that excludes volatile food and gas prices. The cost of shelter, which is basically based on rent prices, was up 5.5%, 5.5% in April compared to a year ago. That's according to the Bureau of Labor. The Department of Labor. Yeah, Labor Department's Consumer Price Index. I was right. Bureau of Labor Statistics is one who calculates that. They just went with the overall bureau. Overall agency, the department. And while there are many positive indicators of how the economy is doing, that's not really true. We've been over this before. Again, we're going to say this again. The methodological gimmick is not the same as a really, truly strong economy. It's a gimmick. It's getting annoying. And people weren't fooled when Hillary Clinton tried to tell that same story of, when she was with Barack Obama. They just simply were not fooled. They decided, I don't think it's true that this is the best we can do. They decided that I don't think it's true that this is a strong economy in recovery. They decided that they don't think it was true that, we can't get X number of wage growth. They decided that they were going to go with Donald Trump because they wanted something better than what they were being told was the new normal. This is what Democrats are doing again. New normal. New normal, new normal. It's not the new normal. It doesn't have to be. Jobs report lowering inflation. It's not lowering inflation. The rate of inflation is slowing. Inflation has not lowered. The rate has decreased. The rate of increase has slowed. There's no falling inflation. There's no lowering inflation. That's not happened. And it hasn't done much, but it hasn't done much to brought solace to households dealing with high rents as well as elevated food and fuel prices. The Consumer Sentiment Index fell to a 6-month low in May as inflation expectations rose and marked 1-month decline of 12.7%. That was the prelim reading for the this University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Index, which is really called the Survey of Consumers, a monthly survey that gauges it. While consumers have been reserving judgment for the past few months, they now perceive negative developments on a number of dimensions. That's from Joanne Su, Director of Consumer Surveys at the university. I guess Richard Curtin's out. He's out. Anybody know that? He was doing it for years. They express worries that inflation, unemployment, and interest rates may all be moving in an unfavorable direction in the year ahead, unquote. And by the way, they used to pull that crap a lot. They used to skew how they reported it under Trump. Recent polling data also point to the grim reality of Americans' assessment of Biden's economic stewardship on the economy. 46% of U.S. adults said they have a great deal or fair amount of confidence in likely he is the nominee, Donald Trump, or to do or recommend the right thing for the economy, while fewer said that of Biden at only 38%, according to a Gallup poll. It's among the lowest Gallup has measured for any president since 2001. And actually, in fact, we covered that survey. If you remember the other component, confidence was the lowest it had been since Herbert Walker Bush was seeking re-election, and he lost. 156. I can't read it all. Kitchen table issues. will say this. I'm not even sure that kitchen table issues alone have the power to change people's minds the way we have seen minds change in the last 4 years. What is totally, I think, the cherry on top, the icing on the cake, whatever the hell you want to call it, is the fact that Trump is a record. If it was Mitt Romney with his turnaround artist biography, it wouldn't work. It didn't work. It didn't. And there were many of the same feelings there with Barack Obama. Gallup's index wasn't as bad. That's true. There's a lot of other things that weren't, However, Barack Obama also couldn't tout kind of job numbers because of the gimmicks that Biden was able to tout. Even though they both suffered from chronic downward revisions during their tenures as president from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Isn't that funny? You have any idea what the odds of that are? Anyway, it's 157, and that's really all the time we got. Got a boogie before too. Listen, if you like the show, don't forget to smash the like button, share it far and wide. Go on over to and subscribe, of course. Go on over to Rumble if you're on YouTube. Go over to YouTube if you're on Rumble. Give it a like. Subscribe there as well. But the best place to follow us when it works, sorry about today, peoplespundit.locals.com. You guys know it always works. peoplespundit.locals.com. It's the best place to have that chat anyway. And when you get there, you will see the little thing that says, hi, support our polls. Do so if you can. Do what you can. It is a crowdfunding project, and we need to pick up. We need to get off the ground here if we're going to be a player in this election. Share it far and wide, because the bigger the contributor base, of course, the more successful any crowdfunding project will be. All right. That's just the truth. That's our reality. All right. And thank you, of course, to all of our sponsors. All of the links and the numbers are in the description down below, along with the discount codes. Take advantage of them. Huge help. 5 p.m. tonight, Battleground Live with Sean Parnell. It's about 3 hours from now. Don't forget it. If you missed, by the way, my interview with Jack Posobiec on Monday, you better go scoot on over to Human Events and go check it out, because it was pure fire. Pure fire. All right. With that in mind, we're out like trout on a fishing route. Don't forget, like I said, share it far and wide. Battleground Live tonight, 5 p.m. Keep a look on my locals account, and I will blast those links out. Anyway, nothing but love for you. Don't do what I wouldn't do. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. We will have an announcement soon about when this show with Barnes is going to be. It's going to be on this poll. Interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff. And we will see you on Friday on another round of Inside the Numbers, regardless. All right. I'm going to get the cue here, and I will see you guys on Friday, the latest. All right. The latest. Promise. People funding out.